Good morning on this Sunday, October 23rd, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. Deja vu. Governor Kemp and Stacey Abrams square off in their first debate of this election season, along with the Libertarian candidate. Also, Herschel Walker continues his attack on Senator Raphael Warnock over evictions at an Atlanta apartment building. And early voting numbers are huge, shattering midterm election records. Melita, Phil, Theron, and Janelle are all here. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Governor Brian Kemp and Democratic challenger Stacey Abrams painted different versions for the future of Georgia Monday night. They clashed on the issues including the economy, crime, abortion, voting, and education. Up on the debate stage Monday night, it was Governor Brian Kemp versus Stacey Abrams, with Libertarian Shane Hazel vying for attention. Abrams and Kemp stood on opposite sides of several issues, including abortion.
The reason people are on my side are because I'm on the right side of history and on the right side of the issues.
Whether you push for these measures or any other additional restrictions on abortion now that the 2019 law is in effect.
No, I would not.
And crime.
I'm going to go after bad people that are selling bad drugs and killing our children and our other citizens.
I will always stand up for making certain that safety and justice are the conversations we're having in Georgia.
Throughout the debate, the two took aim at each other.
This is a governor who, for the last 4 years, has beat his chest but delivered very little for most Georgians. He has denied women the access to reproductive care.
My focus is going to be what it was when I opened the debate, and that is helping you fight through 40-year high inflation. I would remind you that Stacey Abrams campaigned to be Joe Biden's running mate. She supports these policies.
Now, the latest polling from Landmark Communications still has Governor Kemp clearing that 50% plus one hurdle at 51% to Abrams' 45%. Melita, to you first this week. Both Governor Kemp and Stacey Abrams are really trying to appeal to those undecided voters. Many of them are independent voters. How do you think Stacey Abrams made that case to those voters?
I think she made a strong case to independent voters, and I think this record-setting turnout that we're seeing is partly as a result of get out the vote efforts by both Democrats and Republicans, and I think it demonstrates more so than the polls that people are interested in making sure their voice is heard this election cycle.
Janelle, how do you think Governor Kemp made his appeal to those undecideds?
Oh, I think he did a wonderful job. And the reason why I say that, because I think this comes down to two issues when it comes to the undecided. And that is the economy as well as the safety. At the end of the day, I think people care more about whether or not they feel safe. I think they care whether or not they are able to feed their children and take care of their families. And that is where Governor Kemp stayed. And I think that he should just continue to just keep beating that drum.
Phil, besides Shane Hazel trying to steal the show and interrupting everyone, what stood out to you the most?
Well, I think the Libertarian Party made a huge mistake making him the nominee for governor.
So rude, so rude.
It was horrible, and it did take away from the other two candidates, as we all know. And I think but what was good, you had 2 points of reference. You had Brian Kemp representing the center right of the state with his issues, crime, the economy, education. Of course, you had Stacey representing the political left. And just as a comment on turnout, as a Republican, I'm very happy just with the early vote this week, because the heaviest votes came in Greene County and in the Lake Country around Lake Oconee up in northeast Georgia. And also, it did shatter some records. And of course, the over 50 crowd is really heavy, which
we're
they
talking
weren't used
about the
to
debate.
it.
Well, we will get to those numbers. You always jump ahead on me.
I wanted to tell you how happy I was.
Well, we will get there. Theron, debate. Your overall impressions.
Real briefly on Shane Hazel. If you did not know him before the debate, you definitely know him afterwards. And while he made some interesting points, I think that Libertarians, I disagree. I think they got somebody that maybe can go on and have a bright future. But I think, look, to Janelle's point, to me, I do believe. I think he may not be elected to office, but you'll definitely hear him. And you'll see him again.
I'm glad you clarified.
No. I'm telling you, I think the guy said some things that you'd be amazed if some people actually agree with.
Yeah.
But no, I think, look, real quickly, if you're Stacey Abrams, you feel very, very comfortable and you feel good about your debate performance because you did a few things. One, you clearly made people think about, are you better off 4 years later than you were 4 years ago? And I think she kind of, in a very poignant way, pointed out some things that the governor has not done and some things that he can do more of. But if you're also Governor Kemp, you feel like, hey, I won because even though that was a moment, you saw his facial expressions, right? He got a little uncomfortable. He didn't get angry. He didn't say anything. And even when he sort of said politely, you know, Ms. Abrams, I haven't cut you off, she apologized, right? But she then went right back onto her script and pointed things out. So I think both Stacey Abrams and Governor Kemp's camp feel good about the performance. Now it's about turnout, and I know we're going to get to that in a minute. And I think that if you are Stacey Abrams, you feel very comfortable how you appeal to the base, and I think you also did a very good job appealing to the middle.
So let's talk about these early vote numbers, because Melita, I think Democrats really have reason to be optimistic about some of the numbers we're seeing, especially because African American turnout is up. At least at last check, it was about hovering around 34% of the folks who early voted are African American, yet they make up 29% of Georgia's population. So what does that tell you?
Well, it tells us that absolutely the get out the vote efforts by the coalition of grassroots groups has worked. But the high numbers are not just in counties with high black populations. There also are pockets of high numbers all around suburban Atlanta. There are pockets of high voter turnout in northeast Georgia, in southwest Georgia. So you see the evidence of both sides. One county I'm watching closely is Houston County, the home of the Purdue political dynasty, and their voter turnout is up more than 60% so far in early voting. And that's a place where some of these groups have really worked to increase voter turnout in the black community, and it's a place where they just elected their first ever black woman mayor in Warner Robins. And so those efforts are showing in that particular county.
Interesting. Janelle, a lot of interest in this election. Early voting turnout is up to almost presidential year turnout.
Yeah. So you know, when I saw that Stacey Abrams as well as Raphael Warnock was going into these the rural parts of Georgia, I knew that they were energizing their base. What I'm interested to see is what percentage of the black turnout, what's the gender breakdown? Because typically black women are going to go with the Democrats, and typically, you know, that right now we're seeing black men are starting to pull away and go towards the Republican base. So I'm really interested to see what the turnout is going to be. At this stage in the game, I don't want black men to sit it out because they're frustrated with the Democratic Party. We want them to vote, you know, conservative and start so that we can now push agenda that actually supports their needs. So I am interested to see the breakdown.
Theron, Stacey Abrams is pulling out the big names. Oprah had a virtual event. President Obama holding campaign events also for her. Your thoughts on the turnout machine that Stacey Abrams can produce?
Well, I think Janelle just said something that I think Democrats were proud of. And Janelle just looked at this real quickly, that as of Friday, be very clear for our viewers, that 53% of the people who have turned out thus far are women and 45% are men. And then I think the 3% or 1 or 2% there are others. And so, look, Stacey Abrams is bringing my guy who I worked for, President Barack Obama, to basically try to close the deal. I mean, and you bring him in at a time where he is going to be able to not only motivate the base, but it goes back to what Melita was saying. These rural counties where you have college-educated suburban white women, some are disaffected Republicans that are trying to really figure out, do I vote Democrat this time, or do I stick with the party? And so he's going to come in, I think, and really sort of get us motivated, but also make the case for why Stacey Abrams should be governor. But then Oprah come in. Who doesn't love Oprah, right? And so the fact that, you know, this is sort of a playbook that Stacey ran in 2018. Janelle is like, okay.
There's two people here apparently
so you may not like everything about it.
I'm not a fan of Oprah.
But I think that what you're going to also see is that there's got to be an elevation of local validators as well. So while Oprah and Barack Obama are absolutely the people you got to bring, you got to make sure that you have your local people elevated as well as validators to close out the campaign.
Quickly, Melita.
Well, I thought it was interesting that they talked about changing out some paintings if Stacey Abrams is elected, when she was talking to Oprah. And I think the first painting they would switch out is that slave-owning plantation painting that was behind the white male Republicans as they signed the voter suppression law.
All right, well, I want to jump to another issue, because Republicans jumped on Stacey Abrams' comments she made about abortion during an MSNBC interview. She said, and I want to quote here, "You can't divorce being forced to carry an unwanted pregnancy from the economic realities of having a child." Republicans interpreted this as she meant abortion can help solve inflation. Phil?
Well, a lot of people interpreted it, not just Republicans. She got tremendous backlash, and then she kind of had to clean that up. It was a shocker. I don't know if she really believes that. But I also think, too, that going back to having Barack Obama come in, I want to remind Theron and the Democrats that Donald Trump and the Trumpers love Barack Obama. Why? Because the failures of the 8 years of Obama elected Donald Trump in 2016. I don't think that's going to make much difference. I think it's localized. People are seeing Stacey. We're talking about the contrast between that and Governor Brian Kemp, who kept the state open, the first governor to do that. And I see a lot of independents saying, I want to reward him for that.
Melita, I need to go back to this abortion issue because I really want clarification on this. And Phil's jumping around today.
Yes, he is. Well, she talked about abortion being an economic, moral, and medical decision. And when you study surveys of women who have sought abortion procedures, many women who seek those procedures are women who already have children in solid families, who realize that their family can't support them having another child. And I think that's part of what she was talking about. And programs that give women some diapers and formula, that doesn't solve the whole cost of raising a child lifelong.
Janelle.
Well, I mean, the programs that are giving diapers and formula are typically by conservatives, because Democrats like to say that we want to push for abortion, but we do nothing to actually support women who are actually having their children. The statement that she made was, having children is why you're worried about your price of gas and how much food costs. That was the statement that caused people to say, are you now advocating for if you're somehow in a situation where you are impoverished, that you can no longer take care of your kids? Let's use Jen Jordan, for example, who's running as AG. She talked about in the debate how she's from Dodge County, how her mom was a single mom who was a hairdresser, and she had humble beginnings. Does her life matter more than the baby that's inside the womb of another woman who's impoverished, particularly minorities? That's where the problem comes in. You have people who are choosing to have their kids telling other people that you don't have enough money or you're not successful enough to take care of your own. That is the problem.
Quickly,
she's not telling people not to have children. She's trying to give them the option for making the decisions which are right for their family.
But she didn't actually say that. You've actually said it better than Stacey Abrams. She had cleaned it up.
I have got to leave it there, folks. Coming up, the hits keep on coming in Georgia's U.S. Senate race. A look at the latest issues next.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Fresh off his one and only debate, Republican Senate candidate Herschel Walker called a news conference this week, taking a swing at Reverend Raphael Warnock, claiming Warnock is trying to evict people from an apartment complex his church is connected to. Senator Warnock saying this is yet another example of a Herschel Walker lie. Theron, this issue came up, of course, during the debate, and Walker's not letting up. He's been one to really avoid the media, and here he is calling a press conference this week.
Well, when you see that, Lori, it's got to be a few things happening. Maybe his camp, Walker camps, feels like this particular issue is going to motivate voters to go and vote for him. The problem is that I think the actual appearance at this facility did not go as well as he thought it went. I mean, I think we read that some of his handlers had to actually push some protesters back. There were really some inappropriate things said to Mr. Walker. But I think that, we're trying to understand, like, what is your end goal here? Because if the senator, and I'm only quoting what he said, that no one was evicted, while maybe eviction notices were served, and I know there were a bunch of court orders back and forth, but if there's no there, then why do you keep showing up? And then more importantly, if your only solution is to say, hey, I'll pay for it, which is what he said in the debate, I'm just really trying to understand that, because I believe, until otherwise I'm told, that one, the senator had to know that this was going to be an issue because he does pastor the church. And then two, I think that while Herschel Walker is trying to politicize a very important issue to make sure that people have proper housing, I just don't understand his end goal. And so ultimately, I think the senator is doing exactly what he should do, Lori. Stay on message, stay focused on the campaign, and stay focused on beating Herschel Walker.
Phil.
I disagree with that PR approach. Warnock could have simply said, you know what, I'm as upset as Herschel Walker with this situation. I'm going to look into it, and this should not happen. There was a there, Theron, and that is the fact that, yes, these evictions were issued, and some of them for as measly a rent as $28. That's in the documentation that was given to the media. And so it shows the sanctimoniousness of Warnock, and I think it's swinging people. People didn't realize that. I mean, here's a church doing this. This is terrible.
Well, Melita, I want to move on because Herschel Walker has doubled down on his honorary badge, the use of his honorary badge, taking it with him on the campaign trail and flashing it as a way to show support for law enforcement. Your thoughts?
And even having small badges made for his supporters to pass out at rallies. It's an insult to all of the law enforcement officers who wear their badges, which represent years of training, and stand ready to put their life on the line to protect the public safety of others.
Janelle, is he going too far on this?
I don't know if I can say he's going too far. I'm be honest, I don't like the badge thing. I think it creates a distraction that's unnecessary. There were things that Herschel Walker said in that debate that were extremely impactful. There were things that he said, especially when he talked about there being a baby in the room, in the hospital room, when Warnock likes to talk about the government and the mom and all that stuff. I think that we need to focus on those things, because right now, Herschel Walker is showing us that he does have the ability to focus in on these targeted issues. Passing out the badges is something that does kind of bother me. I don't think it helps the undecided. I think it plays into our base really well. You know, I mean, I'm sure everyone wants a badge to put in their room, in their political rooms. But I do think that at the end of the day, we got to focus on the undecided. I don't know how this works with the undecided.
Phil and then
Let
Darren.
me point this out. A lot of Democrat office holders have these same badges, and why don't you give them a plaque? Herschel Walker did a lot of work for the Cobb County Sheriff's Department. That's indisputable. Give him a plaque or something. I don't like the badges, but I want you to know that I hope you condemn the Democrats that flash those badges around too, especially when they're stopped for speeding.
I don't remember a Democrat flashing one during a debate.
Farron.
That's the point. So the fact is, look,
They flash them during speeding problems.
I think both. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think both Republicans on the panel agreed that the conduct and the how he demonstrated that he had a tie to law enforcement. Right, because remember, I go back to this, Lori. Is he impersonating or is he demonstrating?
Well, I don't agree with that.
No, but the fact is, when he was asked the question about his relationship of maybe demonstrating or impersonating that he was an officer, right? He pulled out the badge to basically amplify that point. And so the fact that he's like quadrupling down on it right now, I think, yeah, it's a distraction, and I think it also shows that maybe it's something that he's trying to really kind of bring attention to himself and appeal. But I think the fact that we have men and women out here who are sworn law enforcement officers who wake up every morning, put their lives on the line to protect us, and the fact that you have a U.S. Senate candidate who's now, as Melita pointed out, is passing it out, and to do what? To basically to try to tell people that this is your public safety plan. So it's not just so much that he has done that work in Cobb County, it's that he used it at a debate when he was asked a question about something that he had previously done and how he explained his ties to law enforcement.
Well, you're trying to smear his whole law enforcement assistance over the years, and if you just get on an internet search engine and punch that in, you can see that he has visited a lot of police departments, he's given lectures, he's assisted, and so I don't think you should take that away from him.
Sheriff LeBon gave me a badge, right? And you know he's a dear friend of mine, right? But never would I pull it out to try to get out of a ticket. And then if I've been in a debate, I would not use it to say, hey, this has been my law enforcement.
Okay, I got 1 minute left. I want to get to this because according to 538, the story that Walker allegedly paid for an ex-girlfriend's abortion may have cost him a few points in the polls. Warnock now leads by 4 percentage points, but still not enough to get him over the threshold to avoid a runoff. Janelle.
Yeah, so when it comes to this whole thing, okay, at the end of the day, I'm really, really over personal attacks. I don't care who it's coming from, Republican side to Warnock or, Warnock to Walker. I'm over personal attacks. I don't think it speaks to the 6% that are undecided. We need to lace every argument with solutions at this point. There's nothing else to talk about. When at the end of the day, if I am struggling, again, I keep saying this, to take care of my bills, to put food on my table, I want to know what bills are you going to introduce, what plans are you going to back that is going to put us in the best position to fix this issue. And that's all I care about.
I got to wrap up. Melita, quickly.
Well, we have a record of many ways that Warnock has answered those questions Janelle just posed. He has a strong record of accomplishment in the 2 years he's been in the Senate.
All right, coming up, the AJC does a deep dive on what is driving Hispanic voters to the polls. A look at the data next.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
According to the AJC and the Georgia News Collaborative, Hispanic voters say they want a reset. Just 6% of respondents said the country is heading in the right direction. Phil, this was a small sample of the Hispanic population in Georgia, but Latino voters are a growing population that both Democrats and Republicans are trying to win.
I think it's a very interesting trend, and it's got the Democrats very nervous. These are assimilated Latino Hispanic Americans. They're not the illegal immigrants that are in Georgia or anything like that, but they are conservative leaning. And the issues now that the Republicans are focusing on, especially inflation, that cuts across all lines, of course. But crime, family, the cultural wars, the Latinos that we're being polled are agreeing with every other voter bloc that doesn't like the radicalism of, like, let's just take the example of gender identity in schools. That's not going over with this type of voter bloc.
Theron, nearly 64% of the Hispanic voters surveyed said inflation and high prices have had a major impact on them compared to 54% of overall Georgia voters. So the inflation, the economy is really hitting this population hard.
Lori, I'm so glad we're talking about how pivotal the Latino vote is for both parties, but particularly Democrats have demonstrated in this state for decades that we are on the right side of issues when it comes to Latino voters' values, like things that they care about. When I saw these numbers, I start calling a bunch of my brothers and sisters in the Latino community, and a lot of what this poll displayed are the things that they're concerned about. And they have a right to basically say, hey, look, we're open. Basically what they're saying is that, you know, we have traditionally voted in a very significant way with Democrats, but hey, if Republicans can give us a valuable sort of solution to some of the issues we care about, hey, we're going to take a second look at them. But I think the thing is now it's a wake-up moment for Democrats, because when we talk about the base, the Latino voters are a part of that base, and I think that we need to come out from this day forward with some specific solutions, policy-driven, to answer some of the concerns that we saw in this article.
Janelle?
Yeah, you know, so when you talk about this demographic, we're talking about people who was fleeing socialism, who's fleeing communism, people who have come from areas where there's certain type of caste type systems that were in place. We're talking about people who came because they want to take advantage of the American dream. So when you think about all of that, and then you look at what's happening in the economy, like I keep stressing, that's what's pushing them over to our side, because there's a party who said we're here for you, but at the end of the day the policies are just not matching up.
Melita?
Well, I think that neither party can take this voting bloc as a monolithic voting bloc, because you see country of origin, religious persuasion, and even the length of time in the United States all playing a factor in how different parts of this voting demographic vote. And so neither party should take the Hispanic voters for granted.
All right, we'll leave it there, folks. Thank you. Coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, Janelle, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I have a best girlfriends group. We call ourselves the Hustlers. I mean, so there is cranky. So we have cranky, bossy, feisty, sassy. I'm baby, and the reason why I'm baby because I am the youngest. But the next youngest is over 70. So these women are 70 and older, and so one of my hustlers, feisty, or AKA Sharon, gave me a pillow that I thought was so amazing. I told her I was going to embarrass her and bring it on the show. But here's my pillow, and it says, "My husband is my heart haven." Everyone knows I love Kelvin. I talk about him all the time. So want to definitely highlight her. Thank you to my girls.
Sweet.
And then I also want to highlight Frontline Policy Action, which is a pro-life organization. I did a video with them. I'm going to post it on social media where we're advocating and talking about the heartbeat bill. So I definitely want to make sure we promote them. So just go to my social media page and you'll see that.
All right, Theron.
I want to thank all of the election workers. You know, while we talk about the record number of turnout, we don't talk about the people who are there at these early vote sites. And as of yet, we have not heard, you know, any sort of malfunctions or things happening. So I definitely want to thank them and also the people who are exercising their right to vote. And then also, you know, October is a month that we have to really pay attention to breast cancer and a lot of survivors and people who've had some tragic things happen in their families. So I definitely want to highlight that on the show this month.
All right, two good ones. Phil.
Well, you know, we've been talking on the show about the Fulton County situation with regard to the jail and its overcrowding, and Mayor Andre Dickens of Atlanta and Fulton County did this agreement to send 700 inmates, get them out of the overcrowding, into the barely used Atlanta jail. So my winners are Michael Julian Bond and the mayor and all of the council members that are trying to get this away and moving. And I just want to give a shout out to Andrea Boone and Marcy Overstreet on council, Byron Amos, Howard Shook, Dustin Hills, and Mary Norwood. My loser is Doug Shipman. I don't get him. He's the city council president. He's just so cement-headed. He could break these ties and make it move tomorrow, but he's not doing it.
Yeah, but let the record reflect. You have Democrats as winners this week.
I do. It's a split in the Democratic Party. Good Democrats and bad Democrats.
All right, Lolita.
Well, if you need a break from politics, and who doesn't?
Don't we all right now?
Horizon Theater has a production of Designing Women. It's a 2020 update of the hit TV show, and it's well cast and very funny. And then Carl Gorline is a creative young chef at Woodhall on the west side, offering some innovative menu choices. Another bright spot in current politics is the kind words Sandy Springs Mayor Rusty Paul had for Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens. It's almost unheard of to have a Sandy Springs mayor praising the Atlanta mayor. My loser of the week is Lindsey Graham, who lost his request for an emergency stay before a federal appeals court, and now he has to testify in front of that Fulton County grand jury.
Okay, we will leave it there. And we also got to give a shout out to the Atlanta Braves for an amazing season that was cut a little bit short in the afterwards. But
the Hawks are looking good.
The Hawks are.
And the Georgia Bulldogs.
Georgia Bulldogs are steady.
All right, and I voted, and no lines. It was great. So very easy. Get out there and vote. We'll see you next week. Thanks a lot, everybody. Bye-bye.